All right, buckle up, because today we're going deep on Mahatma Gandhi.
Ooh, interesting.
I'm ready. We're not just doing, the highlights. We're going beyond that, beyond the icon, to uncover some surprising facts about his life.
I love those.
Yeah, and how he became such a pivotal figure. Our main source today is an article that digs into the lesser-known parts of Gandhi's life.
I'm intrigued already.
And let me tell you, some of this stuff is pretty wild. Like, did you know that this man, who later led millions in peaceful protest, was actually terrified of public speaking as a young man?
Really?
Yeah, he was so shy
Wow.
that he froze up during his first courtroom appearance as a lawyer.
Can you imagine that?
I know.
That's pretty incredible.
It's kind of hard to believe, right?
It is. It really shows you, though,
Yeah.
that the Gandhi we know,
Mm.
the fearless leader,
Mm.
wasn't just born that way.
Right.
Yeah. He had to overcome some challenges, just like all of us.
It makes him human,
Exactly.
and those early struggles really played a key role in shaping his character and his philosophy.
I can see that.
So let's rewind. Back to those early years. Young Gandhi is a far cry from the Mahatma we know. Crippling shyness, anxiety attacks, even fainting spells when he tried to speak publicly.
No way.
I know, it's hard to believe.
It really is, considering the powerful orator he became later.
Yeah,
That's fascinating to me, how those early struggles,
yeah.
almost like they were a crucible for him.
Yeah, yeah.
He didn't shy away from those.
No,
He really worked to overcome them. It speaks to his willpower and his determination.
definitely. And then we have this interesting period where he goes to London to study law. You might picture him just hitting the books, right?
Yeah.
But he actually was trying to fill in with British society. He even took ballroom dancing lessons.
Wait, Gandhi,
Yeah.
ballroom dancing.
I know, it's kind of comical to imagine.
And that is wild.
Right. The champion of Indian independence waltzing around a ballroom.
That just blows my mind.
But it speaks to his exploration and self-discovery. He was searching for his place, testing out different identities.
He was young, trying to figure things out.
Exactly. And ultimately, it led him to embrace his heritage even more strongly.
Makes sense.
Like, he needed that contrast to really figure out who he was.
To find himself.
Yeah.
And it was during that time, too, that he really got into spiritual exploration. He was reading the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, all sorts of religious texts.
Wow.
He was on a quest
He was.
for truth, for meaning,
Yeah.
and those explorations became the foundation for his later philosophy of nonviolence and satyagraha.
Okay, so satyagraha. This is a core concept we need to understand. It's more than just passive resistance.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's much deeper than that.
Satyagraha.
It translates roughly to truth force.
Okay.
But it's not about forcing your will on others.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's more about holding fast to the truth,
Yeah.
even when faced with oppression,
Right.
and using that unwavering commitment to truth to expose injustice and inspire change.
It's powerful stuff. So how did this actually play out in his life? Because I know the next chapter takes us to South Africa, and that becomes a pivotal experience for him.
It really does. South Africa was the crucible where satyagraha was truly forged.
Wow. Okay.
He went there as a lawyer,
Huh.
but he quickly encountered the reality of racial discrimination.
Right.
Remember that story about him freezing up in court?
Yeah.
Well, imagine that same young man, years later, being thrown off a train in South Africa simply because of the color of his skin.
Wow. I can't imagine the humiliation and anger.
It was a turning point.
Yeah.
It forced him to confront the deep-seated prejudice and violence of that system.
He must have been furious.
And instead of responding with rage or despair, he channeled that experience into developing satyagraha,
Oh.
a metal of resistance that could challenge those systems of oppression.
So he comes back to India with this powerful new philosophy, but India at that time was a very different place. Was he instantly embraced as a leader?
Not quite. It wasn't a smooth transition.
Right.
India was under British rule,
Right.
and a lot of people were used to a more confrontational style of leadership.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they were skeptical of nonviolence, especially against such a powerful empire.
So how did he win over those skeptics? He wasn't exactly a charismatic, fiery orator.
Right. But Gandhi, he knew that real change doesn't come from the top down.
Yeah.
It comes from the people.
The grassroots.
Exactly. So he traveled all throughout India, immersing himself in the lives of everyday people.
He went to the source.
Yeah, he listened to their stories, he understood their struggles, and he built connections that transcended social and economic barriers.
That's smart. He didn't try to force his ideas.
No.
He built relationships first.
Exactly. Understanding their perspective.
And his commitment to the rural poor, that must have helped too.
Oh, absolutely. It really helped bridge the gap
Mm-hmm.
between the elites and the masses.
Okay.
Gandhi adopted a simple lifestyle himself, wearing khadi, the homespun cloth,
Right.
living very modestly, and this resonated with millions of Indians who were struggling under British rule.
It wasn't just symbolic though, right?
No, not at all.
This whole idea of khadi, it was tied into a larger economic movement.
It was khadi movement. Was about more than just a boycott of British goods.
Okay.
It was about economic self-reliance, empowering local artisans, and creating a sustainable, independent economy for India.
So they could stand on their own 2 feet.
Exactly.
It makes you think about, where your clothes come from, who made them,
It does.
or what conditions.
Absolutely. It's about conscious consumerism,
Yeah.
ethical production, supporting local economies.
These are important things.
They are.
And his focus on challenging social norms wasn't limited to just economics, right?
No, definitely not.
He was a vocal advocate for women and the untouchables,
Right.
groups that had been marginalized for centuries.
He saw the inherent injustice of the caste system,
Yeah.
and he campaigned against it.
So he wasn't just fighting for political independence.
No.
He was fighting for social justice,
Right.
but across the board.
He was.
Yeah.
Gandhi understood that true freedom requires a holistic approach,
Yeah.
addressing not just political structures, but also the social and economic systems that perpetuate inequality.
Okay, so now we're getting into some of those iconic moments in Gandhi's life. The campaigns, the sacrifices that really cemented his legacy. And of course, we have to talk about the Salt March. I mean, 240 miles on foot to make salt.
It's incredible.
It's hard to imagine a more powerful act of defiance.
It really is. The Salt March was a brilliant example of Gandhi's strategic genius.
Right.
Salt, this basic necessity of life, became a symbol of resistance against British rule.
So simple, but so powerful.
Exactly. It captured the world's attention. It exposed the absurdity of the colonial system.
I mean, salt is
Yeah.
such a simple thing.
Yeah.
But he turned it into this potent symbol.
He understood the power of symbolism.
He did.
That simple act of making salt. It became a direct challenge to British authority.
Wow.
Civil disobedience at its finest.
And it wasn't just the Salt March. Gandhi spent years in and out of prison, enduring harsh conditions.
He did.
Using fasting as this powerful form of protest.
His use of fasting was brilliant.
It seems almost counterintuitive, like using vulnerability as a weapon.
That's the genius of it.
Yeah.
It disarmed his opponents.
How do you respond to that?
Exactly. How do you respond with violence to someone who's willing to put their own life on the line?
Like your cause.
Yeah, it forces you to confront the moral implications of your actions.
And his fasts weren't just about political goals.
Right.
He also used them to promote social change, like his fasts for Hindu-Muslim unity and against untouchability.
Right. He was willing to risk his own life to promote understanding, compassion, and equality for all.
That's incredible. And think about the global impact he had. His philosophy of nonviolence inspired so many movements for social change. From the American Civil Rights Movement to the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa.
His legacy transcended national boundaries.
It did.
He showed the world that peaceful resistance could be a powerful force,
Yeah.
a way to challenge injustice
Right.
without resorting to violence.
But it wasn't without personal cost. This unwavering dedication to his cause created conflict within his own family, especially with his eldest son.
That's the complex reality of his life.
Yeah.
His commitment to his ideals, his emphasis on celibacy and simple living, while powerful symbols also created tension in his personal relationships.
It's a reminder that even the greatest leaders are human,
They are.
with flaws and complexities.
And their lives are not without sacrifice.
And speaking of difficult choices, one of the most heartbreaking moments in Gandhi's life had to be the partition of India and Pakistan.
He was devastated.
It shattered his vision of a unified India and led to so much violence and displacement.
It went against everything he'd worked for.
I can't imagine the pain he must have felt.
To see the country he fought to liberate being torn apart.
In his response to the partition, it was a testament to his commitment to peace.
He was.
Even amidst the chaos and violence. He risked his own life.
He did.
Traveling to riot-stricken areas.
Pleading for peace.
Trying to protect innocent lives.
He never gave up hope.
It's tragic that his life ended the way it did. Assassinated by a Hindu nationalist who opposed his vision of a unified India.
The terrible loss.
But in a way, his death only amplified his message.
I think you're right.
He became a martyr for the cause of peace,
Yeah.
a symbol of the struggle against hatred and intolerance.
His story is powerful.
It's a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one person can make a difference.
It's inspiring.
And that real, lasting change comes not from violence and domination, but from understanding, compassion,
And belief.
and an unwavering belief in the good of humanity.
Beautifully said.
We've covered a lot of ground here today. We've gone beyond the typical Gandhi narrative, delving into his life, his philosophy, his enduring legacy. But I think it's important to unpack some key takeaways. What were the core principles that guided him? And how can we apply those in our own lives?
Those are great questions. Well, I think one of the most important things is that true power doesn't come from dominating others.
Yeah.
It comes from mastering yourself. He believed that our inner world is reflected in our outer actions.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that real transformation starts within.
Inner peace.
Exactly. He really emphasized self-discipline, self-reflection, and constantly striving for self-improvement.
So it's about aligning your actions with your values.
Yeah, and cultivating compassion.
Yeah.
Empathy.
Yeah.
And nonviolence in every aspect of our lives.
Makes sense. Another takeaway is the strategic brilliance of nonviolent resistance. It's not just about being passive.
No, not at all.
Right.
Gandhi was a brilliant strategist.
He was.
He knew how to leverage nonviolence to expose injustice and create real change.
It's kind of like turning the tables, right?
It is.
Using their strength against them.
Exactly. Violence often plays into the hands of the oppressor.
Yeah, it gives them an excuse.
Yeah, it gives them justification to retaliate.
With even more force,
Exactly.
nonviolent resistance.
Civil disobedience.
Right.
These tactics force the oppressor to confront the injustice of their actions on a moral level.
And Gandhi also talked a lot about economic self-reliance, this idea of Swadeshi.
Yes.
It feels incredibly relevant today
Way enough.
with globalization and all its consequences.
Absolutely.
He believed in empowering local communities,
Right.
sustainable practices,
Building economies that serve the people.
not just corporations.
Exactly.
It's about taking control of your own destiny,
It is.
individually and collectively.
Yeah.
And his commitment to social justice, fighting for the rights of women, the untouchables, marginalized groups, reminds us that freedom is more than just political.
It is.
Right.
It's about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Regardless of gender.
Religion, any arbitrary social category.
Right. It's about equality.
Exactly.
So Gandhi's legacy isn't just historical events. It's about these enduring principles that we can apply in our own lives to create a more just and compassionate world.
I love that.
It can feel a bit daunting, though, can it?
It can.
Looking at his life,
Yeah.
like how can we possibly live up to that example?
I think the key is we don't have to become Gandhi.
Okay.
We don't have to give up everything
Right.
or live a life of extreme asceticism.
But we can take those core values,
Yes.
truth, nonviolence, compassion, self-reliance,
Those are the big ones.
and find ways to apply those in our own lives,
Exactly.
our own unique circumstances. So it's about finding our own path, our own way to embody those principles.
Absolutely.
Not about replicating his life exactly.
Right.
It's about the small acts of courage, the everyday choices that reflect our values.
I like that.
Yeah.
It could be standing up for someone being bullied,
Right?
choosing ethically sourced products,
Okay.
volunteering in your community,
Yeah.
or simply being mindful of our impact on others.
Being aware, the
Right.
small acts
Yeah.
multiplied by millions of people.
Create a ripple effect
Yeah.
that transforms the world.
Gandhi believed we all have the power
We
to make a difference.
And that change starts within.
Our thoughts, words, and actions.
It all comes back to that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on Mahatma Gandhi, we want to leave you with a question. What aspect of his life or philosophy resonated with you the most?
What will you take away from his extraordinary journey?
And how can you carry forward his legacy of peace, love, and nonviolent action
Think about it. Explore it. Let Gandhi's story inspire you.
to create positive change in the world?
Starting today.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another journey into the depths of fascinating and thought-provoking topics